There is an invisible poison that millions of people consume every single day, and it could be silently destroying your kidneys right now. The worst part? It isn't hidden away in secret laboratories, but sitting right there on your table, in your glass, woven into your everyday life. Millions of people swallow it believing they are safe, when in truth, they are carrying a ticking time bomb inside their bodies. In the next few minutes, I will reveal what this silent poison really is, how it works, and what you can do to protect yourself before it's too late. Stay with me until the very end, because this revelation could change your life. I am Dr. Ana Esperanza, kidney specialist, and I will guide you through a truth most prefer to ignore. The kidneys are guardians no one praises. They do not beat like the heart. They do not think like the brain. They do not expand and contract like the lungs. They stay hidden, silent, working in the dark, yet they decide whether the body thrives or collapses. Each kidney contains close to 1 million nephrons, microscopic filters so small and delicate that most people never imagine they exist. These filters handle an impossible task: to receive all the blood that flows through the body, decide what must stay and what must go, keep the essential elements while expelling the toxins that would otherwise poison every cell. In just 24 hours, the kidneys filter nearly 50 gallons of blood. It is a miracle that repeats itself every day. But this miracle, like all miracles, is fragile. And because they are silent, they are ignored. The body can lose almost half of its kidney function without feeling a thing. No warning sirens, no screaming pain, no clear alarm, only whispers, small changes that most people brush aside. By the time the damage announces itself loudly, the threshold of no return has already been crossed. The most dangerous illusion is that kidney failure belongs to others, to diabetics, to those with severe hypertension, to people who live unhealthily. The truth is harsher. Every person, healthy or not, places scars on their kidneys with daily habits. Salt in food, pills swallowed without thought, glasses of water never drunk, decades of small negligence. Each mark is invisible, yet permanent. Like grains of sand slipping through an hourglass, these scars accumulate until the last grain falls, and then the kidneys stop. Salt is the first and most familiar enemy. Sodium is not a spice, but a trap. Every pinch added, every hidden grain in bread or cheese or instant soup presses the kidneys into overwork. They are forced to hold back water, to regulate pressure at a cost. Imagine a machine built to run smoothly that is pushed into overdrive, forced to operate non-stop under tension. At first it seems to cope, but heat builds, parts wear down, fractures appear, and one day it collapses. That is what excess salt does. And while people swear they add little to their meals, the industry has already salted almost everything they eat. A slice of bread, a frozen pizza, a canned broth, all carry the poison invisibly. Then there are the pills, little white promises sold in pharmacies, trusted without question. Painkillers to silence aching joints, anti-inflammatories to calm stiffness, sleeping tablets to force rest. They feel harmless, even beneficial. But inside the kidneys they dissolve into sharp crystals, leaving scars no eye can see. One pill, one scar. Another pill, another scar. Each one insignificant on its own, but together they form a desert of dead nephrons. And the cruel irony, people who swallow them believe they are helping their health. Instead, they are slowly carving away the very organs that keep them alive. The third enemy is more subtle still: dehydration. It does not arrive with drama, but with neglect. I'm not thirsty, say thousands of older men and women, convinced thirst is the only sign of need. But thirst is not the measure of the body. Water is required every day, in constant flow. Without it, blood thickens, toxins gather, and the kidneys are forced to filter mud instead of water. Think of a coffee filter. Fill it not with water but with sludge. It clogs, buckles, tears. The same happens within the body. The kidneys choke in silence. The signals are faint but present: lightheadedness, darkened urine, cramps at night, swollen ankles, constant tiredness, itchy skin, poor concentration. Symptoms so vague they are written off as stress, fatigue, or just getting older. That dismissal is the fatal mistake, because each ignored sign is a step closer to the cliff edge. The human stories are the most haunting. Mr. Martin, 68, prided himself on walking every day. He thought he was the picture of health. He said he barely used salt, took pills only when necessary, and believed soda counted as hydration. During a routine check, he discovered his kidneys were working at only 25%. He had felt no pain, no obvious warning, just a slow ticking clock hidden inside him. Mrs. DuPont, 72, loved cooking richly seasoned meals. For years, she relied on painkillers for her joints and drank sweet juice instead of water. She grew used to her swollen legs, her constant fatigue, her occasional nausea. When the test results came back, her kidney function was at 20%. Her decline had been invisible, yet relentless. Mr. Bernard, 70, had always considered himself careful. No alcohol, healthy weight, daily walks. But his breakfasts were white bread and cheese, his lunches instant soups, his afternoons fueled by cup after cup of coffee. Dizzy spells finally pushed him to the doctor. The verdict: his kidneys had already fallen below the point of no return. And then there was Mrs. Lefebvre, 75, who proudly claimed she drank plenty. Her daily glass, however, was syrupy cordial. For her kidneys, it was not hydration, but sugar and toxins. They bore the burden until they failed. Now her life is tied to a dialysis machine 3 times a week. Each story is a reminder of the same truth. Kidneys fight, they resist, they adapt, but they are not eternal. And when they fall, the entire body falls with them. This is the part most people cannot bear to face. The real threat is not just salt, not just pills, not just lack of water. Those are only masks, the first layer. Behind them lies a deeper poison, more insidious, more merciless. A poison consumed daily by millions, disguised as harmless, accepted as normal. A poison that accelerates the hourglass of the kidneys, pushing each grain of sand down faster, faster, until nothing is left. And what so many dismiss as minor negligence may in truth be nothing less than the face of a far deadlier danger. Because behind the silence of your kidneys hides an enemy far more ruthless than you imagine. For decades, medicine has wrestled with a haunting question. Why do so many men and women who seem to live ordinary, disciplined lives suddenly fall into kidney failure without clear cause? They are not diabetic, not heavily hypertensive, not alcoholics. They walk, they eat as they were taught to eat. They follow the rules they thought were safe. And yet one day, their kidneys collapse like walls eaten away by termites. This mystery is not new. In the 1970s, long before supermarkets overflowed with colorful boxes and ready-made meals, a handful of researchers began to wonder about the hidden cost of preservatives and additives. They were not rich. Their laboratories were modest, their notebooks filled with handwritten observations, their funding scarce. They were ignored by the great conferences, but they were stubborn. They fed animals with controlled amounts of substances that the food industry swore were safe. These doses were not extreme, not exaggerated. They reflected what humans consumed in their ordinary diets, and what they observed was chilling. At first, the animals seemed fine. They ate, they moved, they behaved normally. But when examined more closely, their kidneys told another story. Tiny scars appeared in the nephrons, the microscopic filters that clean the blood. Small inflammations spread across the tissues. Gradually, the filtration rate declined. The body adapted, covered the wounds with silence, and then suddenly function collapsed. The report they wrote was stark. Continuous consumption of these additives can reduce kidney capacity by as much as 40% before any outward symptom is observed. That line should have made headlines. It should have forced governments to act. It should have changed the way food was manufactured. But instead, the report was quietly shelved. Funding disappeared. Publications dried up. The scientists' warnings were dismissed as alarmist. Why? Because the food industry had discovered a gold mine. Preservatives made products last longer. Colorants made them look fresher. Flavor enhancers made them addictive. These weren't just chemicals. They were tools to increase profits. Admitting danger would mean cutting into billions of dollars. So campaigns were launched to reassure the public. Doctors who raised questions were labeled pessimists, and ordinary people trusting by nature continued to eat. Today, those same additives are everywhere. They are in the ham on your breakfast plate, in the instant noodles cooked late at night, in the bright cereals poured into children's bowls, in the fizzy drinks that promise refreshment. They are even in bread that looks wholesome, soups that claim to be hearty, yogurts that advertise health. The poison does not announce itself with skulls and crossbones. It smiles from every shelf, wrapped in colorful packaging. And it is clever. It does not strike quickly. If it did, the danger would be obvious. Instead, it accumulates, carving invisible lines of damage year after year. It is like a drop of acid falling on stone, harmless at first, devastating over time. When the symptoms arrive, they are vague, almost polite. Fatigue that feels like normal aging, swelling in the ankles dismissed as too much walking, nausea blamed on digestion, dry skin, headaches, restless nights, cloudy urine. None of these scream kidneys. They whisper, and because they whisper, no one listens. The result is a silent epidemic. Take Mr. Lawrence, 66, who never smoked and never drank alcohol. Every morning he ate processed ham. At lunch he heated instant soup. At night he nibbled cookies. For decades he felt strong. Then one fainting spell brought him to the hospital. His kidneys were nearly gone. Or Mrs. Carter, 71, who relied on convenience. A sachet, a microwave, a meal, boxed juice with every dinner. She lived years with swollen ankles, insomnia, exhaustion. When she finally saw a doctor, her kidneys were at only 30% of their strength. Mr. Albert, 69, had a ritual. A glass of cola with every meal. One can't hurt, he said. His skin turned pale. His urine dark. He thought it was his liver. But tests revealed kidney failure. And there are countless others. Mrs. Thompson, 73, who swore by vitamin-enriched cereals. Mrs. Graham, 75, who collected instant soups as if they were treasures. Mr. Phillips, 70, who trusted packaged cookies that promised to be low-fat. Each of them ended in the same place, a nephrologist's office, staring at results that told them their kidneys were scarred beyond repair. And then there are the quieter tragedies. Mrs. Reynolds, 78, who prided herself on thrift. She bought only foods that lasted, canned goods, processed bread, frozen meals. She thought she was clever. She thought she was safe. She collapsed one afternoon while folding laundry. By then, her kidneys had been failing for years. Or Mr. Sanchez, 65, who worked nights and lived on vending machine snacks and sodas. He laughed at the idea of healthy food. By the time the dizziness became unbearable, the damage was irreversible. All of them asked the same question, whispered in shock, almost pleading, "Why didn't anyone tell me?" The answer is uncomfortable, because admitting the truth would cost too much, because pointing at the poison would mean dismantling an empire built on profit, because silence was easier. And so the cycle continues. Advertisements beam cheerful jingles, families fill their carts, doctors write prescriptions for symptoms without tracing the root. And in millions of bodies, kidneys bear the weight, scar after scar, until they give out. The cruel irony is that most consumers believe they are safe. They trust logos, seals of approval, slogans of health. They think if it's sold, it must be harmless. They never imagine that each bite, each sip, might be the drop that tips the balance. But here is what is most disturbing. Even this is not the worst. Not the hidden salt. Not the instant soups. Not even the phosphates in sodas. Because not everything that threatens your kidneys comes from your plate or your glass. There is another force, one even more insidious. It surrounds you, enters you without asking, follows you with every breath. It seeps into the water from your faucet, floats in the air, settles into the very soil around you. And this is the truth that no one dares to speak too loudly, that even if you ate perfectly, even if you avoided every packet and every can, you would still be exposed. Because this enemy is not sold in stores. It is already in the world around you. And it is this force, invisible and inescapable, that explains why so many collapse suddenly, why diagnoses appear like thunderbolts, why lives are cut short without warning. And yet, after all I have told you, know this. This still is not the most lethal poison I have discovered in my years of practice. The kidneys are like walls holding back a silent flood. For years they stand firm, bearing the pressure, absorbing the invisible weight of toxins that gather day after day. But there comes a point when they can no longer resist. Doctors call it the secret threshold. It is the invisible line between resilience and collapse, the point beyond which the kidneys can never recover. As long as this threshold is not crossed, they adapt, they hide their weakness. Once it is passed, no amount of water, no change in diet, no sudden caution can bring them back. The cruelty of this threshold is that it announces itself in whispers, not in screams. It has no calendar date, no precise number, no sharp warning. For some, it arrives in their 60s. For others, in their 70s or 80s. For the unlucky, it comes much earlier. The body knows the truth, but it keeps the secret until the moment of no return. Before this point, small changes can create the illusion of recovery. A person decides to cut down on salt, to drink more water, to avoid processed meals. They feel better, less fatigue, lighter sleep, more energy. They believe they are reversing the decline. But beneath the surface, the nephrons, those fragile filters, are already scarred beyond healing. The apparent improvement is only a mask. The fall continues, slow and unstoppable. That is the deception of the secret threshold. It allows people to think they are safe when the countdown has already begun. Consider Mrs. Lambert, 74 years old. She took long walks, cooked her meals at home, and considered herself the picture of good health. Her only complaints were mild insomnia and occasional tiredness. She agreed to routine blood tests almost as an afterthought. The results shattered her sense of security. Her kidneys were functioning at just 25%. She could not believe it. "But I don't feel sick," she repeated again and again. And she was right. She didn't. But kidneys don't cry out until they are nearly gone. Then there was Mr. Reynaud, 72. For years his checkups reassured him, "Your blood work is fine." The numbers were within the so-called normal range. He trusted them. But one day the weakness became overwhelming. Nausea, dizziness, weight loss. The new tests revealed the truth. End-stage kidney disease. The secret threshold had been crossed years earlier, but no one had noticed. His body had been falling apart in silence, while paper reports told him everything was all right. This is the darkest part of the story. The very tests designed to protect us can lull us into complacency. Creatinine levels may appear acceptable even as kidney function is collapsing. The filtration rate may look normal on paper, while damage spreads like cracks under the surface of ice. Patients leave the clinic reassured, only to discover later that they were living on borrowed time. The kidneys are valiant but unforgiving. They bear the load for years, but they do not forget the scars. Once too many nephrons are destroyed, the rest cannot carry the burden alone. The line is crossed and life is never the same. But what makes this truth even more terrifying is that the poisons we have spoken of, the salt, the pills, the processed foods, are not the full story. Those enemies, dangerous as they are, can at least be avoided if one is vigilant. The true shadow over our kidneys is larger, more insidious, harder to escape. It is the environment itself. The poison seeps into the air we breathe, into the water that flows from our taps, into the very soil that grows our food. It is present not because we choose it, but because it surrounds us. With every breath, every sip, every bite, it slips into our bloodstream, and the kidneys are forced to filter it again and again. They are the soldiers on the front line of a battle no one sees, absorbing blows from an enemy that never rests. This enemy has no label, no ingredient list, no warning sign. You cannot flip over a package to see its content. It hovers invisibly, settling quietly into our lives. And because it is everywhere, it is impossible to fully avoid. This explains the tragedies that confuse doctors and devastate families. The man who swore he avoided salt, pills, and soda and still ended up on dialysis. The woman who cooked every meal at home, drank water, exercised daily, and still collapsed with failing kidneys. The parents who raised their children carefully, only to discover years later that their son's kidneys were scarred. These stories seem impossible until you accept the truth. The environment itself is a reservoir of poison. Mr. Collins, 68, lived in a small town, proud of drinking clean well water. He laughed at those who bought bottled water. Yet when his tests came back, his kidneys were nearly destroyed. The well water contained heavy metals he had never imagined. Mrs. Howard, 70, breathed city air for decades. She was careful with her diet, avoided processed food, never touched soda, but the air she inhaled every day carried fine particles that inflamed her kidneys until they failed. Mr. Patel, 75, worked in agriculture. He trusted the soil, but the fertilizers and chemicals around him seeped silently into his body year after year. By the time he realized, his kidneys were already past the secret threshold. The cruelty is unbearable. The very world that sustains us is also the silent enemy that weakens us, and the kidneys, patient and loyal, are forced to carry the burden alone. This is why the problem is so vast, why it affects millions who thought themselves safe. Because you do not need to choose the poison. The poison is already chosen for you. And yet, even as you absorb this truth, you must understand what we have revealed so far is not the end. The salt, the pills, the processed food, the environmental toxins, all of these are killers, yes, but there is still one poison darker, deadlier, closer than all the rest. One poison that does not just accelerate kidney failure, but multiplies every other danger, feeding them, amplifying them, ensuring that the fall is faster, sharper, more merciless. It is a poison so ordinary that millions consume it daily without hesitation. A poison that pretends to be pleasure, comfort, energy, even health. And yet it corrodes the body from the inside out, turning blood into acid, burning the kidneys until they collapse. That is the truth I have saved for last. And once you know it, you will never look at your food, your drink, your life in the same way again. We have walked together through shadows, uncovering the silent enemies that erode the kidneys, the hidden salt, the daily pills, the ignored thirst, the processed foods that promise convenience while delivering scars, the toxins in the very air and water around us. Each of them leaves wounds invisible to the eye. But now it is time to reveal the greatest poison of all, the one that claims more kidneys than any other. It is not exotic, not rare. It hides in plain sight, dressed as comfort, as pleasure, as joy. Its name is sugar, not just the spoon in the morning coffee, but the rivers of sugar that flow through modern life, the sodas and fruit juices, the sweetened yogurts, the brightly colored cereals, the cakes and cookies, the sauces and breads and snacks. Sugar is not a treat anymore. It is a constant flood, pushed into every product, every meal, every corner of the supermarket, and every gram that enters the bloodstream is another blow against the kidneys. Inside the body, sugar becomes acid. It stiffens the vessels, inflames the tissues, forces the pancreas into overdrive. The kidneys, tasked with filtering this endless tide, begin to drown. Microscopic crystals burn through the nephrons, leaving behind scars. Blood pressure rises, diabetes follows, obesity weighs heavier on the body, and every path leads back to the kidneys. Sugar is not just a poison on its own. It is a commander, summoning other killers to join the assault. This is why patients who believed they were safe fall so quickly. They avoided salt, they reduced pills, they drank water, they cooked at home. But they allowed sugar to sit quietly at their table. They thought a soda was harmless, a dessert innocent, a fruit yogurt healthy. They did not see the trap until the trap closed. The cruelty of sugar is that it offers pleasure in the moment while stealing years in silence. It seduces with sweetness while laying down scars that cannot be undone. It is the most ordinary, the most accepted, the most devastating poison of all. And yet even here, hope remains. Because those scars cannot be erased, decline can be slowed, lives can be extended, suffering can be reduced. The first weapon is water, pure water, free of sugar, free of colorants, free of false promises. Water is the only drink the kidneys recognize as a friend. The second weapon is simplicity, meals made at home, ingredients as close to their natural state as possible, foods without labels screaming with claims. The third weapon is vigilance. Do not be pacified by the words, everything looks fine. Demand your results. Know your numbers. Watch your creatinine, your filtration rate. Knowledge is protection. And finally, the most powerful weapon of all, awareness. Break the silence. Tell your family. Tell your friends. Share the truth, because the poison thrives in ignorance, in the comfort of believing everything is safe. The moment people open their eyes, the poison loses its disguise. I have seen too many faces pale under hospital lights, too many lives shackled to dialysis machines, too many families waiting for a transplant that never came. Do not let your story join theirs. The sugar, this silent poison, may already be in your glass, in your cupboard, in your veins, but you can still say no. You can still protect the guardians of your life. Your kidneys have served you faithfully, silently, from the day you were born. Protect them now, as they have always protected you. Without them, nothing endures. With them, everything is possible. And now I want you to leave your mark. Write in the comments, I protect my kidneys. Do it not as words, but as a vow. A vow to stay vigilant, to choose water, to cook simple, to expose the truth. Because the enemy is real, the danger is daily. But survival is in your hands.